the border areas of the Kursk region for these countries of Europe, including those who today still stick to the anti-Russian rhetoric and blatantly aggressive action against us. And they have been trying, we have seen that in these days, they've tried to speak in a loutish manner with us using the language of ultimatums. And a true example of equal and equitable relations in the 21st century is our partnership and strategic interaction with the People's Republic of China. The Chinese president was the main guest of the commemorative events dedicated to the 8th anniversary of victory. We have had exclusively fruitful talks, and we have adopted 2 statements on the level of heads of state, and we have inked interagency and intergovernmental agreements on energy, trade, finance, science, and many other domains. As I have said, we have decided that my reciprocal visit will take place in September to mark the 80th anniversary of victory over the military's Japan. It's quite symbolic and natural that the main commemorative events dedicated to the 80th anniversary since the end of the World War will be held in Moscow and Beijing, the capitals of the countries whose peoples went through trials and tribulations and paid the highest price in the name of our common victory. Dear colleagues, I think that it's obvious for everybody that over the talks in Moscow and the meetings in Moscow, we also touched upon the Ukrainian conflict settlement, and we are thankful to all our guests, our friends, for the attention they have been paying to this conflict and for the efforts pursued and exerted by them to finalize this conflict. So I believe in this respect to stop on these topics separately. In this respect, I'd like to say that it's well known that Russia previously set forth initiatives to cease fire, but those initiatives were sabotaged by the Ukrainian side. So, for example, the Kiev regime blatantly violated the 30 days moratorium on energy facilities from the 18th of March to the 17th of April, and that moratorium was proclaimed in conformity with the accord reached by President Donald Trump and myself. And the Easter ceasefire initiated by Russia was violated by them either. There were around 5,000 violations on the part of the Ukrainians. Still, during the celebration of the victory, then we believe this to be a sacred holiday. Like 27 million lives were claimed. So, and for this sacred holiday, we also proclaimed a 3rd ceasefire. And we conveyed to our Western colleagues who, I believe, are in sincere search of ways to settle that. So we conveyed our position to them on the Ukrainian ceasefire on the Victory Day, that we did not rule out an extension of the timeline of the ceasefire, having analyzed what would happen during these several days and upon judging by the response and the reaction of the Kiev regime. So what are we observing? What the outcomes are? The Kiev authorities, as you can see by yourselves, did not respond in any way to our proposal to cease the fire. Moreover, after we put forward our proposal, and that happened on the 5th of May this year, the Kiev authorities, in the night from 6th into 7th, perpetrated massive attacks with 524 UAVs and some of the missiles, Western-made missiles, and also around 45 unmanned vessels in the Black Sea were applied. Over those 3 days of the ceasefire that we proclaimed, 8th, 9th, and 10th, things that you saw accounts of in the media happened, and that was clear from your reports also.
Mere full report. They exchanged documents through the Turkish side, and we are preparing a new release of prisoners of the war. Third, the upcoming NATO summit can strengthen Europe's security, or if it sends the wrong signal, it will only encourage Putin. The key to lasting peace is clear. The aggressor must not receive any reward for war. Putin must get nothing that would justify his aggression. Any reward would only show him that war pays off. Geopolitical gains are just as important to Russia as money or territory. If Putin is allowed to decide who joins NATO, where NATO infrastructure can or can't be, then Russia's appetite for war will only grow. Our shared goal is the opposite, to completely end Russia's hunger for aggression. Ukraine is doing its part, and I am grateful to all partners who are doing theirs. And we must act as one united Euro Atlantic community. The NATO summit in June is the right place and the right time to send a clear message. Russia will not get anything from this war. Strong decisions are needed, decisions for Europe, not for Putin. We all need to work together to make this really happen, and it's doable. Thank you, everyone who helped us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Zelensky. President of Romania, the floor is yours now.
For me, it's the first opportunity to participate as a president, and I've been very honored to be here, and I have to thank also to our host, very nice organization. So Bucharest 9 started 10 years ago. It was just after Russian.
It's important to be here in Vilnius today, dear friends, partners. We all want the same thing: to stop the Russian war, to bring real peace, and to make security last. That's what we are all working for. First, I informed our partners about the situation at the front. We also talked about our operation inside Russia, which has seriously weakened their military. Operation Spiderweb showed that modern war really looks like, and why it's so important to stay ahead with technology. All our joint investments in drone production, all our shared battlefield experience, everything we are doing together with our partners, it's making Europe stronger. Today, we agreed with our partners on several joint decisions that will strengthen our defense even more. I thank everyone for your willingness to help. There will be new packages, there will be new investments in Ukraine's weapon production, especially drones. Ukraine can produce much more, and we see partner investments as a way to give those partners priority access to restock their arsenals after this war. Second, I thank you all for our shared view of what diplomacy needs in order to succeed. Today, we see the situation clearly. If Russia turns the Istanbul meeting into an empty talk, there must be a new level of pressure, new sanctions, and not just from Europe. We need to work on joint sanctions at the G7 level, including with the United States and with everyone in the world who wants peace. It's very, very important that each of our partners supports this exact approach. Sanctions against Russia are necessary. It's important to seriously limit Russia's oil trade and its use of tankers. Sanctions, including secondary ones, tariffs, and price caps, can work and push Russia toward peace. Without pressure, Putin will just keep playing games with everyone who wants this war to end. Talks in Istanbul just ended, and I'm waiting for the Minister of Mir full report. They exchanged documents through the Turkish side, and we are preparing a new release of prisoners of the war. Third, the upcoming NATO summit can strengthen Europe's security, or if it sends the wrong signal, it will only encourage Putin. The key to lasting peace is clear. The aggressor must not receive any reward for war. Putin must get nothing that would justify his aggression. Any reward would only show him that war pays off. Geopolitical gains are just as important to Russia as money or territory. If Putin is allowed to decide who joins NATO, where NATO infrastructure can or can't be, then Russia's appetite for war will only grow. Our shared goal is the opposite, to completely end Russia's hunger for aggression. Ukraine is doing its part, and I am grateful to all partners who are doing theirs. And we must act as one united Euro-Atlantic community. The NATO summit in June is the right place and the right time to send a clear.
Смотри, что творится, я не знаю даже, что это сейчас взорвалось.
Let's listen in.
That Donald Trump was waiting until the talks between Russia and Ukraine today in order to make a judgment on whether or not Vladimir Putin wanted peace. Those talks have happened. Where does he stand, and is he willing to impose additional sanctions?
I'll let the president speak on that himself.
Sure.
Today, the Russian and Ukrainian delegations met in Istanbul, but the Turkish president is suggesting that it's high time that leaders, President Erdogan, President Trump, President Putin, and President Zelensky meet in Istanbul. Is that something that President Trump would support and would be partaking?
Well, the president has said he's open to it if it comes to that, but he wants both of these leaders and both sides to sit down at the table together. And we saw them do that at the urging of President Trump today. But as for how the president feels about those talks and what took place there, I'll let him speak on that.
What's the president's reaction to that Ukrainian drone attack, stunning drone attack on Russian airbase? I'm sure he saw that. What's his reaction?
Well, look, the reaction is this war needs to come to an end. And this war has been brutal from both sides. Too many people have died. And the president wants this war to end at the negotiating table. And he's made that very clear to both leaders, both publicly and privately.
Are the trade negotiations still ongoing after last week's pause? And how are the negotiations with the European Union to avoid that 50% tariff?
Well, the European Union came to the table thanks to President Trump's threat of tariffs. And now we are seeing that they are negotiating in good faith with our delegation. So we remain hopeful and optimistic that a deal can be struck with the European Union. As you know, we we are in discussions with many other countries around the world as well, who understand the need to cut a good deal with this president and the administration. And Secretary Bessent, Secretary Lutnick, Ambassador Greer continue to work around the clock on this.
Yes, I think these attacks are concerned. We saw the firebombing of the Pennsylvania governor's mansion, as well as what happened over at the museum here in Washington, and now this most recent attack. Is there concern in the administration that there could possibly be some sleeper cells here in the United States? What type of pattern is the administration looking at as far as terrorist cells for the United States?
Well, there's certainly a concern that the previous administration allowed way too many terrorists and illegal immigrants into the interior of our country. And that's why the Department of Homeland Security is working overtime to arrest, detain, and deport as many illegal criminals and terrorists that we can in the United States of America. And any act of violence will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Megan.
President Trump has talked about wanting to meet with President Xi for a long time. Kevin Hassett over the weekend previewed a possible conversation between the two of them, including possibly this week. Has that call been scheduled, and what is the president hoping to get out of that call with President Xi?
Well, sure. She asked about the potential call with President Xi. I can confirm that the two leaders will likely talk this week. And as always, when there are foreign leader calls, we will provide a readout of those calls. So we'll see you guys later. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline.
Caroline Levitt speaking to the media after doing a hit with one of the cable station news networks.